Hello and welcome to the 8th video outlining my SAAS project. In today's video I would like to discuss why I chose Xunit, AutoFixture and NSubstitute for my testing strategy. The last video I explained why I chose micro front ends over a monolithic architecture and how breaking my system into independent modules improves scalability, flexibility and maintainability. And in video 5, I talked through solid and design patterns, and this is where we get to put some of that into practice. Specifically, this video will relate to the dependency inversion principle. You may remember that I mentioned the code to abstractions, and this is one of the reasons why. Testability. So why is testing important? As we build out software and our new features, it is beneficial to have a regression suite of automated tests that can be run at any point in time. As we develop software, we forget the reasons why we wrote a piece of code. We add new features to code that we may not have touched in a while. And having automated tests gives us the confidence we need to make changes in the code base. Over time, technical debt will mount up. Having a regression suite allows us to refactor the code base safely and confidently. Over time, as the needs change, we can swap in and out implementations. Initially, for instance, I could run on one instance and scale it up as necessary. I could use an in-memory cache in my API so that I can return frequently accessed information. This saves me from hitting my database unnecessarily and saves on resources, thus saving on costs. And when the time comes that I have to scale out rather than up, I can replace the in-memory cache with a Redis or shared cache. If I have test around code that caches information, I can create a new concrete class implementation of the caching interface and trust that my code will still work while I swap in the new implementation. Also, with a test-driven development approach, we can catch bugs early. If a new bug is found, we can add a test and strengthen our regression suite. And again, we build confidence into our code bases. There are several types of automated testing. Unit testing, where you test a method or class in isolation, providing dummy objects that let you specify the exact inputs and outputs you'd expect. And then we have integration testing. This is where you test multiple components together to ensure that they work together. We can test that our code correctly interfaces with a database by using an in-memory database and concrete implementation of all the objects we require. We can then test an API request correctly calls down into the persistence layer and returns the correct model. So why did I choose Xunit? It's widely used in .NET, and I have previously used MS Test and NUnit, and I wanted to gain some familiarity with another of the popular testing frameworks. It follows a more modern approach to testing where dependency injection is encouraged, making tests cleaner and more maintainable, and tests are isolated by default, reducing shared state between tests and improving reliability. Microsoft itself recommends it for .NET Core development, and it integrates seamlessly with AutoFixture and NSubstitute. Pardon me. So why AutoFixture? When writing tests, there tends to be a lot of boilerplate code. Setting up the test with usable test data. This can clutter tests and make them harder to read. AutoFixture will scaffold any values in objects for you, so we no longer have to manually create objects and provide necessary values. It uses a generic implementation of a test data builder pattern to do this. And AutoFixture works well with dependency injection, allowing for easy creation of mocks. The benefit of this is that the tests become more declarative. instead of newing up our objects. AutoFixture instead provides them to the test method. Why NSubstitute? I've used mock previously and wanted to gain familiarity with another mocking framework that is widely used within the industry. I chose this because it's designed to make the arrange, act and assert phases of testing easier. I don't need to worry about whether I require a mock or a stub. I just set up my test and assert that I receive the calls I expected in my code, along with the inputs and outputs. The API is also intuitive and easy to work with. So why all three? I could have just used Xunit to write my test. However, as this is a data-driven application, the effort I would have to put in to arrange my tests would have increased the development time. As I am coding to abstractions, it makes sense to use NSubstitute so that I can quickly and clearly see that I am making the necessary calls in my code to objects outside of the system under test, or SUT for short. If I didn't use NSubstitute and wanted to be confident that I was testing sufficiently, I would have to write my own mocks and stubs, again increasing development time. At a minimum, I would need a test runner, Xunit in this case, but I could have used MS Test or NUnit, and I would need a mocking framework for the reasons I've mentioned. So mock you instead of NSubstitute. I also mentioned that scaffolding the test data would be cumbersome if I manually had to roll my own. Incorporating AutoFixture, I can seed my test with usable data, such as seeding packages into a non-tenant, along with random data for things that I don't need to assert against, but I need to populate to be able to make my service calls. This reduces the boilerplate code I will have to write, means that I won't have brittle tests. I can focus on adding my features and creating a minimum viable product. It also means that I can adopt a true test-driven development approach. In chapter 6, we discussed my reasonings for adopting a microservices architecture and the need for automated pipelines for consistent deployments. When we have an automated test suite providing regression, we can run these tests as part of the build pipeline. So if any test fails, then the code checking is rejected. This ensures that we have a master main branch that is always releasable. If a gate fails, then the code is rejected and the developer has to fix their code. Baking quality in from the beginning and tying these concepts together ensures that we always have deployable quality software. I'm going to jump over to Visual Studio. Show some tests. Actually, this one. So I have my unit tests, and I have some customizations I can use that are provided to AutoFixture. Some basic customizations, and you can see I've customized this one slightly for I don't know. So in my tests, we'll see. I inject an HTTP context accessor. So there's no setup code for this. I'll just inject it as well as my locations controller. So this is my system under test, and then I can assert, I can set my context accessor to return my HTTP context, for instance. In this one, I inject my location service, and then I can assert that calls were made against it with specific inputs. So hopefully you can see how it helps again. Everything's injected. And these are just some extension methods for setting up some data in for a known client, and then I can add additional details in. And this I'll just let these come in with values here. So you can see the tests are a lot cleaner. They arrange the act, the asserts. So it's a lot more declarative and a lot easier to read through. So I hope this has helped you with your own test strategy and what frameworks to choose. If you like this video series, please subscribe.